It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life, the kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
You thought we would never come back, but we're back with the podcast. It's been a while. A very busy while at that. A lot has been happening. We're back with the podcast. I was telling my guests that this may be our last episode of the podcast. Maybe our last episode of the podcast, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But let's focus on the guest. Our first gentleman, our first male guest this year is Mukuka Mulenga. Most of you who are obviously in the professional circles do know him. If you don't know him, we're introducing Mukuka to you, and obviously we hope that after this, then you begin to subsequently follow him. For me, the thing that, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Sui, for having me. It's good to be here.
The thing that drew me to you is I felt like your career really has risen so fast for your age. I'm assuming you are young.
Relatively, yeah.
You're not one of those who you look young, but you're 46, So that for me is the part that says like there's something there, that others can learn from. Let's tap into that.
Yeah.
And also I was talking to someone, it's like, you must have him, you must, that guy is, So I was like, it's for me, it's just confirmation I needed. And then now we're here.
Yeah.
But before we go there, I've got new cards. I was showing you that we got new cards.
Yeah.
These are you see, not being here for a long time. These are the original cards.
Yeah.
And then we have these new ones for the last podcast. And then I want you to pick 4 of them, okay? Pick 4 cards.
Any 4.
Then, any 4, no color, same color. There's a question, ask it, and then answer it. Okay, those are 4. Give me the others. Let's just change your mind.
1, 2, 3, 4. I think I got 5 by accident. There we go.
All right.
So I ask it and then I answer.
Ask and answer it.
All right. First one is, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up? It's a good one. I wanted to be a lawyer, actually.
Why? I want to know why.
For the longest time, I actually don't remember why. I think it's because I had the aspiration and the ambition for the longest time. I think I was 6, maybe 7 years old, and I carried that all the way through to my teens. But why? According to my parents, anyway. My father told me it was around about the time of late President Levi Patrick Manawasa. So I was wondering, what does it take to become a president? Right. So what's his career? So my parents said he's a lawyer. It's like, I want to be a lawyer too. But that's the case. So that's where it came from. Then over time, I think the passion or the interest just developed further with all these legal shows. At the time, there was and then Boston Legal, exactly. Boston Legal, and
I've never watched it though.
You never. It was great. I loved it.
Was on DSTV.
I loved Boston Legal. But that's what I wanted to do when I was younger.
Okay.
Next one is, what was your favorite subject in school? It was chemistry.
For a lawyer, that's strange.
So oddly, so I was good at the pure sciences and the histories and the English literature stuff. So I had the benefit of being good at both, but chemistry was really interesting for some reason. I think it had to do with the fact that the teacher was really engaging. I think when a teacher is engaging, it makes your love for a subject grow.
Yeah.
Chemistry was a fun one for me.
I was a Kablonga boys where the Mr. Marceliso. She loved it. The whole story for another day. But
yeah, same. Mr. Ngalandi, that was his name. What was your? I've read this one already. What's something you believed earlier in your career but think about differently now? Earlier in my career, I believed that your work will speak for you, and that's it. I don't believe that now. I think, yes, your work and the quality of your output is important, but you also need to put a megaphone to your work, right? So you need to give visibility to the amazing work that you do. Typically, humans forget So if you don't give that voice, if you don't put a megaphone to the good work that you've done, it can go unnoticed, and then it's going to breed frustration in you after you've put in your level best.
Yeah, expecting that they know what I'm doing.
Exactly. I've done this. I expect that senior leadership have seen it and they'll acknowledge me, and then nothing happens.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Final one.
Final one. What's a skill you learned when you were young that you still use today? So when I was younger, I think it has to do with the lawyer thing, right? I'm watching Boston Legal. I always told myself I really want to be in a space where I'm able to articulate myself clearly, and I want to be able to speak clearly, communicate as consciously as possible, and make sure that no one misunderstands me, and that I come off eloquently. So I used to practice. Same age, from about 10 all the way through into high school. I'd practice in the mirror. Right. I would first of all learn a new word every day, practice it, challenge myself to practice it or use it in a sentence in that particular week. But then I'd also just practice how I speak in the mirror. I think it's been useful all the way through to my adult life.
All right.
Yeah.
Talking about your adult life, now you're currently serving as executive head for marketing at MultiChoice Zambia. But for those that may not really appreciate who Mukuka is, run me through your career journey. How has it been? Where have you come from?
Yeah. It's been an interesting journey, to be honest, right? I think when I take a step back and look back is when you see how all the dots ultimately connect together. But I graduated from UNZAO with a degree in public administration and politics in 2014. Right, I spent about 9 or 10 months before I moved into formal employment. So the first job I got was at a communications agency called Langmead and Baker Communications. Right, so it's a PR firm, and it worked with a broad set of clients across multiple industries. So I was assigned clients across the NGO space, the not-for-profit space. At the time, that was with I don't know if you remember Mukuka, Zambia.
Yeah.
Yes. Mukuka, Zambia was a UKID funded project. So clients like that, Zambian breweries, PEP Zambia, and a few other entities. So it's a new space for me. Public relations, I didn't understand what it was. Corporate communications, I had no context. I had no background. I had no reference point. The only reference that I had around what this space would entail was just what spokespeople were doing, right? The police spokesperson, a ZRA spokesperson,
Saka City.
Lusaka City Council spokesperson. So in my head, I'm thinking I'm going to be a spokesperson, but that wasn't the case. So I found myself in that organization with a great boss. Her name is Gillian Langmead, and she walked me through what the communications ecosystem would entail, what the career paths would look like, and we spent a lot of time actually just unpacking what that would look like for me. And it's time that I appreciate, the fact that she even dedicated that time to me specifically. So I spent about 2 years there, working on those set of clients, learning the ropes, a press release here, stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement, event planning, etc. So that's where I started out from. So yeah, roughly 2 years, and it was an enriching experience. I got to meet some of the best people, some of whom I still keep in touch with to this day because I learned so much. But after that, I've always had this strong sense of ambition, right? So super strong sense of ambition within me of always wanting to do more. And not to say that I got comfortable, but there was a certain sense of I want to achieve or try something different and something unique. At the time, Vodafone had just come into the market. I think they had been in the market for about, give or take, 8 to 10 months. They had been in operations already. And I participated in, they had like a writing competition at the time under their youth program called Jump. I don't know if you remember the Jump thing. Yeah. So there was a writing competition that I participated in, and I won it. So in the process of all the engagements between myself, Jump, and Vodafone, there was a vacancy that opened up there for a marketing and communication specialist. And I'm trying to remember if I applied for it or they called me for it. So I joined the Vodafone business. as marketing and communication specialist, exposed to other aspects of the business around product development, segmentation, basically what was core marketing at the time. And I basically transitioned from doing communications and I moved into a highly commercial environment, right? So my KPIs were completely different. The expectations that were placed upon me were completely different. It was a very steep learning curve. But again, I had people within the business that were kind enough to help me understand how things work. They were gracious enough to extend their own time, their own expertise to make sure that I find my feet within the business. So I spent about 2 years within Vodafone, an extremely enriching experience. I got the opportunity to engage with international consultants who would come into the market. I got the opportunity to participate in what we called a mini CEO program, myself amongst a few others who were within the business at the time, who were basically given the opportunity to run business cases and make certain areas or certain localities profitable in line with what the overall business plan was. So that was also an enriching experience. So looking back, I think the Vodafone experience was something that really platformed me, something that really gave me the opportunity to upskill and really show me that there's a lot that's possible within the corporate space. It's unfortunate that the company didn't make it, right? But I look back on it very fondly. So post Vodafone, I transitioned to Barclays at the time as a marketing and communication specialist. Again, I spent about 2 years there. So I transitioned at a time just before the bank moved towards ABSA.
Yeah.
And I was actually moving specifically to provide support around the transition from Barclays into ABSA. So basically took upon responsibilities that were, one, BAU, making sure that things were running operationally from a Barclays point of view, but then also rendering support in the project around transitioning Barclays into ABSA from a brand perspective. So also an enriching experience. Great people that I met, great people that poured themselves into me. Interestingly, my line manager at Vodafone is the one that strongly advocated for me to join Barclays because she had also made a transition prior to me moving. So that golden thread was consistent. And she's been instrumental to my growth, instrumental to my career trajectory. And I actually owe her a lot. She knows this.
So you were together at Vodafone.
Mm-hmm.
She moved to Barclays,
Yes.
and put you along.
Correct. After about, I can't remember the exact time frame, but after a few months. Yeah.
What did that teach you about work relationships?
That's a great question, right? So that for me highlighted the significance of building solid work relationships and genuine work relationships. It wasn't a transactional relationship that I had with her. It wasn't purely based on these are your KPIs, I deliver the KPIs and I move forward. So a philosophy that I adopted quite early on in my career was I want to make sure that I always make my boss look good, right? And I think that's been the basis for the extent to which I give 110%. Less about me. I want to make sure they look good. Because if they look good, I know that I will look good to them, right? Ultimately. So it was more of a big picture thing. And I worked as hard as I possibly could to make sure that she looked good while we were at Vodafone together. To make sure that no deadlines were missed. If deadlines were on the verge of being missed, that I was able to communicate effectively before that actually happened. But the work relationship thing cannot be underscored. It can't be underemphasized. We like to talk about you need a sponsor if you're looking to elevate to the next role, to the next level within your own career. The aspect around work relationships, truly, I can't underscore that.
Okay, so we're at Barclays now. Fast forward,
I spent 2 years at Barclays. Right before the full transition to ABSA, actually, I think about a month or two before the overall transition happened, I moved to FNB. So there was a vacancy at FNB for a marketing manager to look after the corporate and investment banking and business banking space. So something that was relatively new, or a space that we're really looking to expand upon just from a positioning point of view. I saw the role, but I didn't apply for the role because I was happy where I was. I was extremely happy. I felt that my work had been recognized. I felt that I had made inroads with the right level of stakeholders. I felt that my career trajectory within Barclays was very clearly mapped out for me. So there was no need for me at the time, at least that's how I saw it, to make a transition, to make a move. But as life or as fate would have it, I received a call from FNB HR at the time, telling me about the role. And initially I said, I'm not looking to move right now. Yeah. When I received that call, I was with one of my colleagues who said, "Why don't you just give it a try? Just listen, see what they have to say." And I said, "You know what? At least even for the sake of being courteous, let me do that." Which I did. I underwent an interview process. I got the chance to speak to the head of strategic marketing at the time, the head of CIB at the time, who's now the CEO, the head of HR as well. And the manner in which they sold the business, the manner in which they positioned how I would plug into the business, how I was going to experience my own growth. Because I think it's worth stating that for me, compensation has not necessarily been the number one thing on my list over my entire career trajectory. It's always been about, well, can I grow? Is there room for me to grow professionally, personally? Is there room for me to elevate myself? Will I have the opportunity to flex my leadership muscle? Is there opportunity for me to take on projects that allow me to be exposed to new skills, to different individuals who know a lot more than I do? That's always been top of mind and priority for me. And that's exactly what they sold to me. Just the opportunity to really unpack myself a lot further, the opportunity to basically own myself a lot more than I have, to own my space rather, a lot more than I have in the past. So they sold that to me. It sounded great. I loved it. And I made the switch from Barclays/ABSA to FNB, where I spent just under 4 years. Just under 4 years at FNB. It was again, I think it's a golden thread. Great people that I met there. Amazing line manager who really platformed me within the business, made sure I got the right level of exposure. Going to your point on the importance of relationships within the workplace. I was there as marketing manager for corporate banking for about, I think, 1 year and 6 months, if I'm not mistaken.
So in all of these places that you've worked, what's the shortest you stayed in one organization?
I think ABSA might have been the shortest. Just under 2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Under 2 years.
It will take, yeah.
I read somewhere that the best way to increase your income is change jobs. Was that sort of like your thought process?
No, it wasn't. I've read that as well, actually. I've read about it. I've seen TED Talks about that. I think there's some merit to it. But no, that wasn't my thought process for the transitions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in all of these, which job was your first management role?
My first management role was FNB.
FNB was the first
I mean, it depends on how you define management, right? Management in terms of people management or functional management?
Both.
Well, in terms of functional management, that would be ABSA. ABSA moved into a managerial role, right? So it's one of manager grade. Let me say that. Then FNB, FNB is the one that provided me a bit more scope from a manager point of view.
Okay. So at ABSA, you had like management role, but no people under you.
No people under me, exactly.
How was it the first time you had to manage people?
It's unique. Yeah? It's something that you look forward to, first of all, because if you have ambition, I had ambition. If you've got a certain aspiration for yourself, people management is something that you look forward to, and I looked forward to it. So the first time was exciting, of course, right? You want to do everything right. It's like when you get a car for the first time.
Yeah.
You want to take it to the car wash every day. You want to make sure that it smells good inside. You buy the car shampoo, etc. That was a similar process or a similar pattern in my head. I wanted to make sure I was having the right level of one-on-ones. I wanted to be the type of boss that I would like to have, right? So it was a unique experience, but then you begin to learn very quickly that people are different. People respond to things differently. People are motivated by different things, right? Whereas personally, I'm self-motivated, self-driven. self-starter. Other people may not necessarily be that way, and they may need a bit more of an external jump start. Other people are fully motivated by money. Others are motivated by growth because they have a growth mindset. Others are just not motivated at all, right? So there's a lot of those dynamics to balance. So it was an interesting and unique experience. I got the opportunity to pretty much experience almost all of those.
And how did Mod Choice come about?
Mod Choice came about from a call, basically. So I had a recruiter that reached out to me. Like I said, I was at F&B for just under 4 years. So I was in SA attending a conference, an F&B marketing conference, and I had a recruiter reach out to me via WhatsApp. I think they had been trying to reach me on a normal call. They couldn't get through, so they reached out via WhatsApp. They said to me, listen, there's a role that would like you to consider that we believe would be a perfect fit for you. I don't know why they thought it would be a perfect fit, because at this point I had spent quite some time in banking. So that was pretty much my mindset. So a transition from banking into video entertainment doesn't necessarily look like a perfect fit, but that's what the recruiter said. At the time I said, quite similar to when I was at ABS, I said, I'm not really looking forward to move right now. Now, bear in mind, at this point, I'm senior manager within F&B, right? So I joined as marketing manager. After about a year, 6 months or so, I was given the opportunity to act as the head of marketing for about 6 months, give or take, right? It came about very randomly, but for me, it was an endorsement of my capacity, an endorsement of my leadership or potential leadership capacity. So the fact that the EXCO team at the time was able to recognize and say that Mukuka should act while we look to fill this vacancy was a stamp of approval for me. So I had acted for about 6 months. After acting, I was then promoted to senior manager for marketing. So when that call came, I was senior manager for marketing, had been in the role for a bit of time. So I really wasn't looking to move because I thought, well, this organization is taking really good care of me. Again, there's a very clear path for my progression, a very clear path for my growth. I have the right level of exposure at a country level with my country exco. I have the right level of exposure also with the hub, the group leadership. So there wasn't really any incentive, so to say, for me, or disincentive to leave F&B as a business. But the call still came, and it still gets your mind going, right? You start to wonder, well, the head of marketing role, I'd basically be moving into an exco level role. So those were some of the considerations that I had. So I said no initially. Then the head of the HR director from Mod Choice reached out herself. She explained the role even further, and it was enticing still. But again, just from a place of being courteous, I said I'll be more than happy to then just hear you out, listen to what you have to say a little bit more, which I did. I got the opportunity to speak to the managing director. I got the chance to speak to the regional director and the group executive head of marketing. Again, they walked me through the entire portfolio, the scope of the work. They flew me to Ethiopia, actually, right? To say, listen, if you really want to experience our business, because we're having a conference, just come over and have a look, which I did, right?
And what did you tell the guys at FMB?
Wait, what? At this, excuse me. At that point, I took leave and I was planning to travel anyway for vacation. So we did take a vacation, my wife and I, to Ethiopia. So it was a two-pronged experience. So we're in Ethiopia for vacation, but at the same time, I'm also getting to see what this business is all about. Because when you're from the outside looking in, you have a certain perception of what Mod Choice is as a business, right? And that was one of the reasons why I had an initial hesitancy. I was thinking, well, is this business model still sustainable in Africa? People talk about all the streaming, they're talking about Netflix, and you start to wonder how much runway does this business still have in Africa, in Zambia in particular. I got to the conference, I saw some data points, I saw the culture of the organization, and it was exciting. It was really exciting. And more so than anything, I think just the opportunity to flex my leadership muscle a lot more than I had before, because I'd go into a space where I'd be looking after a team of 9, right, across the entire marketing ecosystem or value chain, from content marketing, digital marketing, trade marketing, brand management, etc. And the role was a lot more commercially focused than any other role that I had had in the past. So a lot more P&L responsibility and accountability. So my KPIs would be very hard KPIs, so to speak. So it's a challenge that I thought something good to experience. Right, if I fail, I fail. But if I succeed, it's something that's going to be really good to have on my CV. Also taking into account my age at the time. I think I was 29, 30, right? So just the idea of becoming a head of a functional area at 30, 31 is not such a bad thing as well. So yeah, that's how it came about, and that's how I made the switch.
All right. And for someone who's, following your career and they also are at a crossroads,
Yeah.
what would you say to people really about switching jobs?
Yeah.
I know you touched a bit about it earlier, but talk me through the process. What should one consider? Here is, especially where you're called, because when you're called, really, you're just walking through an open door.
Exactly.
You're walking through an open door. Talk me through how one should sit themselves down before they say, you know what, this is good for me. And what does good for me actually mean?
Yeah. That's a good question. It's one that I've struggled with because I've had two of these opportunities or two of these moments where I was at a crossroads. And, I would give feedback initially. In both instances, it was no, but then eventually became yes. I think taking a measured approach is always good, not to give an answer just instantly, especially if you're able to buy some time with either a recruiter or a headhunter or whatever it may be. I think taking a step back is the first thing to do to assess what exactly it is you want out of your career, right? That's step number one. What goals have you established for yourself? Are they financial goals? That could be a factor and could influence the decision that you make. Is it leadership goals? That could be a factor and could influence the decision that you make. Is it just personal ambition goals? Again, that could be a factor and influence the decision that you make. I think it really just does come down to reflection, significant introspection to understand what exactly it is you want to achieve for yourself as it relates to your career. But then beyond that, I think consultation, if you have a family, consult with your family. I would talk to my wife about some of these opportunities and say, this is what's on the table versus where I'm currently at. This is what I'm thinking. These are the pros, these are the cons. And getting some insights and advice from close family members is something that I would also recommend. If you've got mentors, I would also recommend speaking to mentors. Those who've gone ahead of you, those who've experienced similar paths ahead of you, typically provide some sound counsel. And also just researching the organization that's looking to poach you, if they're looking to poach you, or the organization that you're looking to switch to. That I did a lot of that before making the switch to MultiChoice. So I researched the organization, I looked up the financials, I read annual reports, the group annual reports, the SA annual reports. I watched interviews from the leadership team on YouTube because I was just trying to get a sense of the business. So what exactly am I walking into? I looked up some of the people on LinkedIn who were at the Exco level to see what they were like, right? So that was the level of research. I called a few people that had worked within MultiChoice previously just to ask them what the culture was like, especially the culture. I think that one was important for me because I wouldn't want to move into a space that would then stifle me or limit me. Because one of my core attributes is I love to ideate. I like to ideate and implement quickly. Right. So I didn't want to go into a space that would, one, limit my ability to ideate and think differently and limit the extent to which I could take something to market quickly. But thankfully, none of those were red flags when I would ask some of the people within MultiChoice what the culture or the business was like. So that level of research is also relevant. And to those who are spiritually inclined, pray about it.
All right. One of my mentors told me, don't take a job that will increase your salary by 10,000 kwacha. It's too small. I know you said money is not important, but what do you make of that?
don't take a job that will increase your salary by 10,000 kwacha. It's too small. That's an interesting one. I think switching a job there's always a risk that comes with making a switch to a job. I don't think that's something that we talk about often enough, because I'll give you an example of myself. I'm at FNB. Like I said, I have the right level of exposure, the right level of stakeholders see the work that I do. I don't need to prove myself any further. Right? I spent a lot of time in the early days proving myself to say that I'm capable, I have capacity, I have potential, I am here to grow in this business, right? So the key stakeholders have said, Mukuka, yeah, thumbs up, green light. The risk of moving to a new organization is having to do that all over again, and then you don't even get the seal of approval or the stamp of approval. I think it's a huge risk that people don't typically talk about often enough. Now, the money part, it's a tricky one, yeah, because it really just comes down to what you would place value on. If 10,000 kwacha is value to you, then I don't see why not.
Let me give you an example, right? Let's say you stay in Woodlands, for example, and your office is, say, in where Mount Choice is right now, Arlington Carter Road. You get a job that pays you 10,000 kwacha more.
Yeah.
And let's say it is in the industrial area, for example. You get a point, right? Or it is further. So you find that the fuel now that you're spending, and this is just basic reasoning, right?
Yeah, no, really.
You find that 10,000 kwacha shrinks to actually become 6,000 kwacha. You get a point, right? So then maybe there's some jobs. The finances really balance down to, there are some jobs where you can just drive back home and have lunch. But now, because you're in an industrial area, lunch every day. So then you begin to realize that, okay, that 10,000 kwacha shrinks, and the actual money you get is 4,000.
That's true.
So ideally, you've moved for a difference of 4,000 kwacha. But then also the risk with the moving, from my perspective, is if where you are right now, let's say you moved to company X, for example, it means, and the difference is, after calculating that 4,000 kwacha, ultimately, you can move 2 months later. You get the point, right?
Yeah, even
if a good opportunity comes, because now you look like you're unstable.
Exactly.
2 months, the car's already moved.
Yeah.
But if you stayed where you are at multi-choice, in 2 months, that opportunity comes, you can move, because you are compounding now, the years are extended. So for me, that was where the numbers sort of like seem to make sense. Because there's some companies, for example, like Zambia Airports, it's at the airport.
Yeah.
That far. And you're staying, let's say, in Makeni. You get the point, right? So now the commute.
I think so. I agree. I guess it's a question of negotiation. So you do weigh what your options are in terms of what the total compensation package is. If it's an incremental 10,000 kwacha to your basic pay, how does that affect you, right? You've spoken about the transport aspect. Listen, it really does come to whether or not that's real 10,000 kwacha that hits your pocket, or if it's going to be spread out across the fact that you're in a higher tax bracket. Maybe you get taxed a bit more money in your transportation, maybe now you're paying for lunch, etc. It really is a negotiation discussion. I do think, though, that I don't think it's a yes or no. I think it's a very gray area.
It's
a very gray area. And again, it's a situation that's unique to every individual. Just negotiate correctly. Make sure you're getting actual value for the work that you're going to do. I think the temptation also, because it's a new role, it's potentially a new role, some incremental money, the temptation is just to say yes. And also, I find that there's still a fear with negotiation. People are afraid to do it for some reason.
I was about to ask that. That's my next question. I'm trying to come in. Talk to me about the art of negotiating.
Yeah.
You don't want to be seen to be too cocky.
Yeah.
Avutachem guys.
Right?
Yeah,
like, of course.
How do you negotiate what is a win-win? Like, how do you because also you don't want to look like she just wants money.
Yeah.
This guy just the money is important. You can't run away from that. You can't, because I don't think you can move, and this is very toxic, that to move from this company to this company, same benefits, same pay, same everything.
Yeah. Unless you're moving for a bigger scope of work, or there's that as well, right?
But my point is, talk to me about the art of negotiating. How do I approach this whole negotiating, whether I was headhunted or I applied and I'm given an offer?
I think the first thing is acknowledging that the HR people, the HR community expect you to negotiate, right? That expectation exists. So they've built out a budget for that particular role, and they expect that there's going to be some back and forth on where they ultimately land with the compensation package. But I find that and this is just talking to colleagues, friends. I think I had a recent incident where a friend asked me that very question when she was given an offer and she wanted to negotiate, but she was terrified. And I mean, terrified to go back and say, but this is actually what I want to earn. I think acknowledging that a negotiation is natural. It's not, they will not perceive you as being greedy if you say you want a little bit more money, right? So that's number one. That's the first step. The second step, I think, is having a clear understanding of what value you bring to the organization that you intend to move to. The value in this case would just your whatever your academic credentials may be, the experience that you bring. I think having a clear understanding of what the scope of the work is and what will be expected of you is also something that you would need to communicate with the recruiters. Then also, if you do happen to have any information relating to what the average pay range for that particular role is, that's something that's worth bringing up. It's a tricky one in a market like us because it's not public information. We don't have like a Glassdoor type of website that gives average salaries for certain roles in certain organizations. So it's some research that needs to be done. But that's what I would say. I think the biggest takeaway for me especially was just the understanding that they expect me to negotiate. They expect us to go back and forth. And it's always about stating that number that you feel comfortable with also, to be honest. I think when you're being greedy, you will know you're being greedy. I think there's a no in almost every person to say what I'm asking for is excessive. When you look at the scope of the work, you look at the organization, you can almost instinctively tell when you're within what's a reasonable range and when you're shooting beyond reason.
All right.
Yeah.
2 times in this conversation, you mentioned your career was clearly mapped out.
Yeah.
Where you were in Barclays, in F&B, it was very clear where you were, and so it was very hard for you to leave.
Yeah.
How do I get to a point in my career where it's clearly mapped out?
Yeah.
Because for most people, most of us, it's not clearly mapped out. It's, let's see how it goes.
Yeah. And that's a really good one. And I think I know what the basis of that is, right? Let's see where it goes. And I actually agree with this philosophy of careers are not linear, right? They're not linear at all. When you go up, you go down, you go left, you go right. Ultimately, you get to your destination if you persevere enough. So even when I say clearly mapped out, I'm not saying in the sense that it was to say you go from this, then you'll be this, then you'll do this, then we'll promote you to this. Not necessarily like that, but in the sense of, first of all, I had mapped out how I wanted to do my own career, how I mapped out my own career trajectory. I did that personally, right? So I said, at this point, I want to have this type of role and this type of level of responsibility. What's needed to occupy a role like this? Oh, you need skills like this. You need a qualification like this. For example, you need to have experience in running projects like this, etc., etc., etc. So I mapped that out for myself, right? And it's still mapped out even for what my ambitions are currently. So that's level one. Second level is where you map it out with your line manager, or you share what you've mapped out with your line manager or the person to whom you report to around, this is what I see myself as within this organization. I expect that in 2, 3, 4 years, I'll be in this role. I'll do the following trainings. These I can self-fund. These I'm hoping the organization can fund. And all things being equal, I intend to land at this particular position, right? So that's one. I think being proactive about it, not expecting that your line manager is going to map out your career for you, not expecting that HR is going to map out your career for you. I think you have to be proactive enough to do it yourself. And when you socialize those key stakeholders, your line manager, human resources, learning and development, I think the conversation is a lot easier, right? I think one thing that we take for granted or maybe don't acknowledge enough is that people do want to see other people succeed, right? I look at the people in my team. I want them to succeed. Definitely. I want to be in a place where I can facilitate their growth. I can facilitate their expansion. I can get them to a place where at some point I become irrelevant and they take my job, right? I personally find satisfaction in that. And I think there are a lot more people within the corporate world who find satisfaction in that. But it's a lot easier if you take the initiative and map out your own career path first, which is what I did. So FNB or APSA were just plugging into something that was already in existence for me. But again, just a disclaimer, not careers are not linear. It's not a linear path. It's not A, B, C, D. It could be an A, then an F, then a G, then a C. That's the direction.
Okay. On the lighter note, you don't look like a loan guy.
A loan guy. Like bank loans.
Yeah, because most people in banks don't move because, you know, you've got this whole mortgage waiting for you. So then when they call you for an offer, I go like, no, I can't. I wish I could, but
I wish I could.
yeah. Because I know most people are tired because of that. Earlier you talked about your work speaking for you.
Mm.
How did you come across that concept and how have you applied it in your career?
I came about it not necessarily from experience per se. I mean, I experienced it to an extent where the loudest voice is heard, right? And it's an unfortunate thing about some corporate spaces where if you're loud enough, even if your work isn't great, you still get a certain level of recognition. It's something that I hope we can all course correct over time. But it's something I came across, I think, on a YouTube video or something, just random personal growth stuff that I was researching upon. I think there was some career growth videos on YouTube that I was listening to, and they mentioned how your work may be good, it may be excellent, right? But it will not speak for you in and of itself. You need to give it a voice. And it was uncomfortable for me in the beginning because I didn't want to come off, I don't know how to phrase. I didn't want to come off like I'm boasting or as cocky, exactly, right? I didn't want to come off as though I'm the one, I'm doing all this stuff. Look at me, I'm this amazing individual. I think there's some tact and some nuance around how it should be done. But truly, it's one of the best principles that I have come across from a career growth point of view. I remember debating this with a friend some years ago, actually, many years ago. And he was strongly of the view that I will let my work speak for me. And I said, fair enough, but especially if you are really looking to grow, right? Senior executives have a lot on their plate, and I mean a lot of stuff on their plate that they're looking at simultaneously. It's very likely, the likelihood of them missing out on the great work that you've done is actually extremely high. If anything, once they've checked the box, they just move on to the next thing, right? So if you're not proactive enough to say, this was of strategic importance to the business, the following tactical interventions were put in place by myself, working collaboratively with A, B, C, and D, and we're able to achieve A, B, C, D. Thank you, leadership, for your support. It's small, but it puts your name in the spotlight, and people begin to pay more attention to you. So it's a principle I've taken throughout my career. I do not do that to neglect my work. I think the work still remains the foundation. The work still has to be good. The work still has to be excellent. I still have to give 110%. So me giving voice to the work is just a little bonus.
Yeah, I remember someone saying, society has no place for the humble. Yeah, those people who, no, we did it as a team. No, it was a team.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, they definitely need to acknowledge team effort, right? And
but if it's collaborative, even the CEO comes and says, "This is really good." I mean, whose idea was this? No, it's not about it as a team. But No,
you're right on that. No, like I said, you need some tact and some nuance around how you go about it to make sure you don't step on some toes. But you're definitely right. I don't think that we should be too humble about our accomplishments, about the work that we do. If you've done some good work, be proud of your work and give it voice.
There are some people that you started out your career with and you are at different levels. Like you said, you're in your 30s and now you're an executive head marketing. You are sitting in Exco. And chances are you started like this.
Yeah.
They're either still here or they're moving steadily, but not at the pace at which you've moved.
Yeah.
What would you say is the difference between you and them? What did you have to do that when you look back, you see where the gaps are with your peers and why they're not where you are?
That's a hard one. It's a hard one because I don't do that, right? So I don't necessarily analyze my peers' growth. I think we all have unique journeys.
No, this is you being humble, right?
This is me being humble. On camera, I can't say, no, but really, I think we do have unique journeys. I would say one thing that, I forget where I heard this from, but we downplay the role that luck also plays in some of these things, right? Quite luck, call it whatever divine providence, whatever it may be. You know, like I am spiritual, so God has carved out different paths for different people. I would like to think I also did find myself at the right place at the right time with the right people. Right. I do like to believe that I may not be the hardest working person within my peer group. I'm sure there are some that work a lot harder than I do. Right. But maybe they were in a space where the line manager was nothing like what my line managers were. Because like I said, I was given the exposure. I was thrust to the front. In some instances, I didn't even understand why I was being thrust to the front, but it happened. And when the opportunity came, I took the opportunity. I recognized it as an opportunity, and I really maxed those opportunities out. So yeah, paths are different. I certainly don't look upon my peers who may not necessarily be where I'm at as not giving their all, not giving their best. I just think things happen at different times.
All right.
Time and chance happens to all, right?
Let me give you another chance to answer the question. At your level and your experience as a leader, you've had to promote some people over time.
Yeah.
Why did you promote those people and not their peers?
So I have a set of attributes that I look for in people that have been privileged to lead. And even my team know this as well, right? My teams have known this, the ones I've had the chance to lead. One, I like self-starters, right? Take the initiative, have agency and a sense of urgency as well. Don't expect that I will come and tell you, you need to do A, B, C, and D today or this week. I'll give you a high level. We need to accomplish this. How you do it now is up to you to figure out. If I have to handhold, and I've got no issue with handholding where I see there's a need to handhold because the individual needs it. But if I have to handhold on a consistent basis, then you're not ready to be given more responsibility because it's going to overwhelm you. It's going to burn you out. I wouldn't be doing you a favor if I promoted you. So that being a self-starter is number one. Taking the initiative, critically important. I spoke earlier around how I made it my mission to make my boss look good, right? I want people who do that also, right? I want them to almost think on my behalf or think ahead of me to say, this is a challenge that we foresee. Let's try and solve this before it escalates. That's the type of individual I like to promote, right? Yeah.
All right.
So that to me shows you've got potential. It shows you've got capacity for more. It shows you've got capacity for growth. Even before we go into aspects of leadership and soft skills, at least at a technical level, I can see that this is the person that needs to be elevated. Then I look at softer skills. Are they able to collaborate? Are they able to speak confidently? Because the higher you do go, it becomes a lot more about stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement. Are you able to position your case confidently? If somebody pushes back, do you just shrink back and go away, or are you able to articulate what you believe is a rationalized or a logical position?
All right.
Yeah.
And for someone who's young at the level you've reached in your career, have you ever sat down in meetings, or does that happen where you sit down and imposter syndrome hits?
Myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. I don't know if it's the first time, but when I was at FNB, you quite told you I was given the opportunity to act as the head of marketing. That threw me off the rails because it was unexpected. The head of marketing at the time was transitioning to our Botswana business. So there was a vacancy. In my head, I was like, oh, person A, B, or C are the ones who are going to act or even take up the role. Let me just continue doing what I do best. And it was not on my deck of cards at the time. But I received a call from her. She explained to me. So after the initial shock, I recall going into, I think, what was my first EXCO meeting. Right. And I was extremely nervous, full on nerves. I think I was shaking at the time. Thankfully, it was during COVID, so it wasn't even face to face. It was virtual. So no one could see the extent to which I was panicking. Now I experienced quite some imposter syndrome. I think throughout that 6-month period. Right. I don't think there was ever a period where I would have moments where I would think, okay, I've got this on lock. I'm in a good space mentally. But then immediately after that, the imposter syndrome would hit me quite aggressively. I think the important thing around this imposter syndrome thing is just to power through it. I think feeling it is almost inevitable. Working through it or working despite it is where the victory, or quite the victory, lies.
So you acted 6 months, they obviously brought in a different head marketing. Did you ever go back and say, how did I do in the 6 months?
I did quite consistently, actually. I think I had 2 or 3 reviews at the time. So each time I was asking, right? So asking one for the imposter syndrome, just to give myself a sense of comfort. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing okay? Am I delivering as per your expectations as to the CEO, right? But yeah, at the end of the 6 months, I did ask to say, is this a role that you are going to consider me for over the long term? That's one. How did you feel about my performance? What areas do you feel I needed to grow in? What gaps did you notice? And that feedback came through very positively by Biden. Biden Longo, the CEO now of the rest of Africa business for FNB. It was very clear, and I appreciated his feedback. I appreciated how candid he was, because I saw it as, one, a recognition of, again, my potential, my existing capacity at the time and future capacity. And the fact that he was very explicit around this area, and this area you need to work upon, is something that I appreciate to this day, because I did get to work on those areas.
All right.
Yeah.
And what would you say has been your greatest challenge in terms of the aspects of managing people?
Personalities, I think, right? Personalities differ. You could have an individual who appreciates to be praised in public, right, in front of the rest of the team. And you may have an individual that doesn't like to be praised in front of the team, right? They'd rather you just drop them a message, a text, an email saying, well done, just to themselves. So the introvert-extrovert balance is a tricky one to navigate. It's why you can't really take a blanket approach to how you manage people. And I've tried to be as deliberate as possible in doing this, in managing, in understanding personalities first. This person's an introvert. They like to keep to themselves. They're a loner. They don't want to collaborate. Or this person is an extrovert. They want to be recognized. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be given a shout out in front of the management team, or via email, or in front of the rest of the team. So the balance, that dynamic, has been one of the biggest challenges. But yeah, it's a challenge I relish, that's for sure. I think it's rewarding ultimately, just being in a place where you're able to help guide careers, to help shape career trajectories. But it has been challenging and rewarding.
How do you manage people who are older than you?
I get that a lot. Yeah, I get quite.
Yeah,
quite
because also the age thing also is a bit of a problem. There are always some people who feel I should be the one leading. This young man, what does he know? I've got more experience. How do you navigate that?
There was a video I watched from Sunny Zulu. I think it was recently, where he sort of touched on this, not necessarily within the context of age and leading people that are older than you, but he said, yes, leadership is it? I'm trying to remember what exactly he said, but to the effect of, yes, leadership is in action and not in title, but the title still exists for a reason. You know what I mean? So there'll be times where you will need to reference rank. There'll be times where you need to reference your authority, or the hierarchy of the organization and where you sit within it. Generally, I like to set the tone early enough to make it clear who's at the helm of the ship, right? So once that's been established, then it's a lot softer, so to speak, right? In instances where there is tension or friction and rank needs to be pulled, I have no issue with pulling title. Yeah, that's just the honest truth. But then also, the good thing is I haven't had many instances where I've had to do that. I think I've built and established strong enough relationships with people who are within my age bracket that report to me, and also those that are my subordinates but are older than me, right? I've been privileged to lead a really good set of individuals who have established some good rapport with. So there's a level of mutual respect to the extent that I've never had to say, listen, I'm your boss, do this or get out. No. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you handle giving feedback, especially difficult feedback?
Yeah. I'm very honest about it. I am extremely honest about it because I view it as something that's beneficial to the individual. Maybe let's contextualize what we mean by difficult feedback. Difficult in the sense that you didn't perform and you're going on a PIP now.
It's something like that.
Like that.
This is below the standard. Like you've really gone below. Like
Yeah.
I can't even believe that kind of feedback. Yeah.
I try to keep it private, first of all. If it's really below the standard, if it's not up to par and does not meet the expectations that I've set, then I typically like to treat that privately. I try not to have discussions like that in the open. Not to say they don't happen in the open, sometimes they do. But as a general rule of thumb, I like to have those as a one-on-one. But no, generally, I'm very open and honest about it. I like to say, the expectations that we have in this department, first of all, because I have made very clear across multiple organizations what my expectations are, right? And they're sky high, they're through the roof, because I do want to, I aim for moonshots, right? And the expectation is that the team also takes up a similar mindset, a similar mentality. So if I feel that the work that has been produced doesn't meet a particular standard, I say it very clearly, very explicitly. You are expected to do A, you didn't do A, you did B and C instead. You need to course correct. This can't happen again. Do you need support also? Because I don't just leave it at you messed up. It's also an instance of how best can I make sure that you have the right tools, the right level of support to ensure that you are bringing your best self to this particular project, if it's a project.
All right.
Which I've never really struggled with giving negative feedback.
Okay. And for a leader, what kind of skills do you hope to develop in yourself? Like, I'm working on, I really want these skills.
Yeah. Definitely less technical. I'm not necessarily looking now for like technical skills or abilities. I think it's more around just the softer side of people management and people development. I think to be a lot more, I don't know if the word is empathetic, because I don't want to seem like I'm not empathetic. I am, but I would like to develop that a lot more. I would like to be a lot more perceptive, just around, because if you're working with, say, an introverted individual, if they have an issue, whether it's a personal issue and it's impacting the quality of their work, they won't tell you, right? They'll just keep it to themselves and continue producing bad work. I want to be in a space where I'm able to recognize patterns of that sort and know that this isn't typical behavior of person X or person Y. So yeah, just mostly on the softer side of things. That's where I would like to expand my skill sets, expand my influence as well, right? Like I said, I don't want to have to be pulling title or rank if I need something to be done. Getting buy-in from subordinates is always the best approach. Being able to deliver that in a manner that's persuasive enough, influential enough, and charismatic enough, those are spaces I want to grow in a lot more.
All right. And obviously, as a head, you look after so much, you do so much. How do you still stay organized and also effective at the same time?
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes as a leader, you tell someone, do this. Days later, I even forgot you asked them to do that.
Yeah.
Because you're not really organized, you're not fully in control. While you tell this guy, do this, you're putting out this fire, you're dealing with that, your CEO wants that, and how do you still stay effective and still on top of everything?
Cool, that's a great question. It's great because very recently I was having a one-on-one with one of my team members. And the feedback they gave me was, because at the end of the one-on-one, I obviously ask, any feedback for me? What do you think I can do better, improve upon? The feedback was, you are taking long to respond of late. right? Which is very valid. And I could totally relate and agree because I had noted it by myself before they even brought it up. When they brought it up, it was a light bulb moment for me to really expedite resolving it. And I would take 2 days or so to respond just because my mailbox is so full and to your point, running around doing A, B, C, D. But I try to, at the start of each month, first of all, have a view of the key things that I need to do or accomplish for that month in terms of activity for the business. What do we need to do to drive results, right? Okay, we need to launch X campaign, B campaign, campaign C, maybe 3 at most, right? What engagements do I need to have in the form of meetings for the month? Which ones are the critical ones? All right, there's an Africa Exco meeting happening on this particular day. There's in-country Exco on these particular days. I have these one-on-ones mapped out. So that's how I've categorized it as business-based initiatives, whether it's driving subscriber numbers, yada, 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 stakeholder engagement, and team engagement. So that's how I've broken it down. So 3 categories at a monthly level. Then I look at it on a weekly basis as well. So generally, it's not too many things. I try to make sure it's not too many things that I have on my plate. Obviously, within each of those now, there's quite a number of deliverables that sit. So if it's campaign number 1 within the business category, maybe there's 10 deliverables. That's where delegation comes in. And I try to delegate a lot, actually. A lot. I remember a time where when I did the acting stint, I wasn't delegating much, right? Because I'm there as a specialist. Now I've been thrown into a leadership role with the mentality of a specialist, right? Which is to do, right? I'll be doing the decks, I'll do the spreadsheets, I'll do this. I remember finding myself up at midnight doing things that I should have delegated. Yeah, so that experience for me, because it was a very painful one, being up so late. Painful, but enlightening. I delegate a lot to my team right now. Delegate enough to make sure that they are stretched also, but not so much to the extent that they are overwhelmed as well.
Burnout.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what is the future for your career? Where do you see it ending?
I don't know.
Going back to your point, the map.
Yeah. I actually,
What is the okay? I've arrived.
the end point I've never known. That I can say for sure. I knew that there was a point where it didn't go beyond where I'm at right now in terms of mapping out the career trajectory. The head of marketing was the ambition and the aspiration. Then I hadn't mapped it out beyond that. And it's not even the first time I'm getting this question. I did get asked, so what's next? I do not know what next is, right? It could be anything. It could be becoming a managing director, which was never an aspiration. But someone said to me, but why not, right? So I started to think about it a lot more. Why not? It could be a consultancy. It could be... So, I mean, the honest answer is it's a space that I haven't fully explored yet. It's a space where I can give actual certainty yet. I do know that the ambition to do more still exists. And I'm glad I'm in a space where I can do a lot more, right? In a space where I am not bored, where almost every day is different, where every day is significantly different from the previous day. So there's that. But yeah, just that I like to believe that there's some elevation on the horizon. And I'll always continue to put my best foot forward, because also you make your own luck. When the opportunity shows up, how am I showing up?
Okay. And as we come to an end, my last question: what 5 things would you give to young people as advice on building a solid career?
Okay. 5. I don't know if it's going to get to 5, but number 1 would be have a thirst for knowledge, right? Especially if you're just starting out, if you're entry level, you've just gotten out of university, it's your first job. I think don't be distracted by what people do on social media. People are positioning these fake lifestyles, and now young people feel a lot of pressure I need to earn X amount so I can pay for an apartment in Ibex or Ibex or in New Kasama, so I should buy this Benz or whatever it is. All of that is superficial, and I wouldn't recommend it in the early days, right? I would recommend strongly investing in one's knowledge base. Look to learn a lot. And I'm not even saying go and get a master's degree or an MBA necessary, but I mean learn from other people. I mean, go on YouTube and learn as much as you can. Sign up for short courses, be it at local university, some online. Harvard Business School offers great online courses. MIT offers great online courses, which are relatively affordable. Just keep adding relevant information that makes you valuable to an organization, because ultimately it's about adding value. I think that's number one. Number two, get yourself some good people around you. So a mentor, 2 mentors. It's useful to have insight and wisdom from people that have gone ahead of you, because then you get to navigate and circumnavigate some of the pitfalls that come with corporate in Zambia, right? You get to learn about how you can manage conflict and things of that nature. Some of the pain points that come with the corporate space. I think betting on yourself also is really important. Going back to your point around the humble thing, I think you need to bet on yourself. You need to know that you're capable, that you're good enough, even if it may not feel like in the moment, even if it may not even seem like in the moment. You really just need to build up your own confidence and say, I'm going to grab the bull by the horns, I'm going to let go, I'm going to power through, and I'm going to leave my mark. One of my regional directors said to me one time, a good friend of mine now, he said to me, Mooks, he calls me Mooks, no one's going to give you anything in this business. You're going to have to get it yourself, right? And I think it's a principle for life. No one really is coming to save you, as people like to say. No one is going to map out your career for you. You have to take that initiative yourself. Yeah. That's number 3. And I think it segues into point number 4, being be a self-starter. Don't sit back and wait for somebody to apply for a job for you. Don't sit back and wait for somebody to tell you to do A, B, C, D. Just take the initiative, see what the opportunity is within your business, see what the challenge is for your line manager or your boss, and fix the problem even before they ask you to fix a problem. You stand out from your peers, you stand out from the pack a lot more when you do that on a consistent basis, which then segues to my last point, being consistency. You cannot be good in week 1. In week 2, you're mediocre and substandard. Then you're good again in week 3, and then you go back to being mediocre in week 4. You need a level of consistency in the delivery of your work. There will obviously be blips here and there, driven by one reason or another, where you're not necessarily giving 100%. But ultimately, because the work compounds over time, right? You may not see it work out in year number 1. It may not work out in year number 2. That's the big exposure that people are looking for. It may not even work out in year number 3, but if you stay consistent, all of it is compounding, and before you know it, it's just going to explode in your face. You know, that analogy people like to give of when you plant a seed, you don't see anything happening. You're watering it, nothing is happening on the surface, but underneath you're taking root. And that's exactly what's happening. I think if you're consistent with delivering what you need to deliver at a high level, and I mean at an extremely high level, you need to imagine you're competing with people in Silicon Valley or in California, have that global mindset as opposed to competing only at a local level. If you can perform at that level on a consistent basis, I think it's only a matter of time before you explode in a positive way.
Thank you, Mooks.
Thanks so much, Ulanj.
Thank you so much for the time, man. I know we should have done this way earlier, but
we should, yeah.
I believe this was the right time.
This was the right time, yeah.
Not have dropped this level of wisdom.
Yeah.
You had to, but we'll continue to follow you and see, where life takes you. I know you are on LinkedIn. Those who would like to connect, obviously, will follow Mukuka Mulenga.
Yeah.
Just look out for the multi-choice in the bio. That will then, tell you. So, your name is very common name.
It's Trust me, if I do a Google search, I'm on page number 6.
So but thank you very much for coming through.
Thanks again for having me.
It may be our last episode.
I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah. So I was saying a story, and I tell people this earlier. So this structure, like I told you, is being demolished where we sit. Personally, I've been thinking about stopping the podcast because of time.
Yeah.
My job is very demanding. So every time I sit here, first of all, the funny thing about podcasting, when I sit here, I feel like this is actually good. We shouldn't stop. But then again, there are always circumstances outside of this. The work is demanding. This place being demolished was like a sign that you should not do podcast. So that's really where we are. If it does continue, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. No, listen, I certainly hope it continues. I don't know how often you hear this, but I think this is a really good platform. It's inspiring to people. It's the wisdom and the nuggets and the insights that are dropped by your guests are. We almost can't believe you get that for free. Like usually I should actually be paying for this.
And for me, really, the whole idea behind the podcast was I don't bring names, or celebrities or people who drive numbers. No,
exactly.
I've brought you. People don't know you like a celebrity.
Exactly.
The thing that you have to drop. You get the point, right? The things I've learned just from this conversation alone, and these are things that when I'm driving, I play them back. I am here, but I'll still play back this conversation and learn from it, because for me, it's about from Mukuka's life. What did I know before the conversation? What do I know now?
Yeah.
And what is what I know now going to do for my future? So for me, it's really around that. It's good. The conversations are good. It's just a lot of issues around it.
I know the logistics.
There's the logistics, the costs and the whatnot, and then the job also. I also want to be where you are, so I have to put 100% of the job. Then there's a podcast, and then so it's really a lot. If it does continue, I hope it does.
I hope so. I hope that we'll start a petition.
Yeah, all right.
If not,
that. Thank you for your presence.
No, thanks a lot.
And just keep doing what you're doing, because I feel like for many young people, the people are fighting for space. I was having a conversation with my CEO and with Patricia from ECZ, and we're talking about the whole conversation around women equality and inclusivity. And my CEO was saying, no, I don't believe in what's this inclusivity. No, why should women be included? When women are equal, inclusivity is automatic. You're automatically included because you are able.
Correct.
You're not included because he's a woman. And that's the same thing with young people. Let's not cry for, no, they should include young people. No. Have you done
demonstrate,
the work?
exactly.
You demonstrate value. Then they will not even think about, no, he's young or not. It's that which speaks for you. Because I was seeing, also someone was saying, like, don't put your age on your CV, your date of birth. Why are you so relevant?
Yes.
I don't think your age should determine whether you get a job or not.
Exactly.
You look at the skills, the work,
what value do you bring?
When you bring your NRC, when they offer you, you actually, or when they see you in person, you're actually young.
Correct.
So, young people like you are the ones that then open the doors for other young people. Because if young people like you mess up, the older folks are saying you
Moana manje. Yeah.
Continue being a shining example, Mukuka.
Nah, Sigulanje, thank you so much.
Pleasure is mine.
Cheers, man.